I'm sitting here at 98 years old, and I can tell you the exact moment I stopped waiting. My name is Eleanor, and for 40 years I believed that 3 words from one person would finally set me free. It started the summer I turned 58. My sister Margaret said something to me at our mother's funeral that cut so deep I felt it in my bones. We were standing by the gravesite, and she leaned over and whispered that our mother had always loved her more, that I'd been difficult my whole life, that maybe if I'd been different, things would have been easier for everyone. Then she walked away, got in her car, and drove back to Connecticut. I stood there with my husband holding my arm, and I couldn't move. I just kept thinking she'd call that night to apologize. She had to know what she'd done, but she didn't call that night, or the next week, or the next month. I tried to go on with my life. My husband Walter was patient with me, though I could see the confusion in his eyes when I'd go quiet at dinner or stare out the window for long stretches. Our 3 children were grown by then, busy with their own families, and I didn't want to burden them with something that felt so petty when I said it out loud. How do you tell your daughter that your own sister's words at your mother's funeral have been eating at you for months? It sounded childish even in my head. So I kept it inside and told myself I was being mature about it. I'd wait for Margaret to realize what she'd done. I'd wait for her to feel the weight of those words the way I felt them. I'd wait for her remorse. Years went by like that. Walter and I would get Christmas cards from her, always signed just with her name and her husband's name, never a personal note. I'd hold those cards and study her handwriting, looking for some sign of regret, some tremor in the pen strokes that might suggest she was struggling with what she'd said. I never found it. I started having dreams about the apology. In them, Margaret would show up at my door, sometimes young like we were as girls, sometimes her current age. She'd be crying, and she'd say she was so sorry, that she'd been carrying this guilt for so long that she didn't know how to make it right. In the dreams, I'd forgive her immediately, and we'd hold each other and cry, and everything would feel whole again. Then I'd wake up and remember that in real life, she was still in Connecticut, probably not thinking about me at all. Walter died when I was 73. Margaret came to the funeral. She hugged me and said she was sorry for my loss, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is when she'll say it. She'll realize life is short, and she'll finally apologize for everything. But she just patted my hand, told me to call if I needed anything, and left. I stood there watching her drive away again, just like at our mother's funeral, and I felt something harden inside me. My children started noticing. My daughter Rachel asked me once why I never talked about Aunt Margaret anymore, why we didn't visit each other. I told her we drifted apart, which felt like the kindest version of the truth, but Rachel knew me better than that. She said, "Mom, you're carrying something heavy and it's making you smaller." I told her I was fine, that I was just getting old. But I wasn't fine. I was stuck. Every birthday that passed, every holiday, every small milestone, part of me was still standing at that gravesite waiting for my sister to take back her words. I'd be at my grandson's wedding, smiling in pictures, and in the back of my mind I'd be thinking about how Margaret should be there, how she should be the one standing next to me, how she'd stolen that from us both. I started going to a grief group at the community center when I was 81. I told myself it was because I missed Walter, which was true, but I think I was also looking for permission to be angry. I wanted someone to tell me I had a right to wait for that apology, that I wasn't being unreasonable. Instead, I met a woman named Joyce who'd lost her son to a car accident caused by a drunk driver. She told us one week that she'd spent 5 years waiting for the driver to show real remorse at his parole hearings, waiting for him to understand the magnitude of what he'd taken from her. She said she finally realized she'd been giving him 5 more years of her son's absence, letting him steal not just the past, but the present too. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what she'd said. I'd given Margaret 40 years. 40 years of my life spent holding my breath, waiting for her to release me from something only I could release myself from. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and let myself really think about my sister for the first time in years. Not the version of her I'd been angry at, but the real Margaret. The girl who taught me to ride a bike. The teenager who snuck me into her room when I had nightmares. The young woman who was so afraid of being ordinary that she sometimes said cruel things to feel special. I thought about our mother who'd played us against each other without meaning to, who'd been so wounded herself that she didn't know how to love us both the same way. And I thought about that day at the funeral, how Margaret had been just as lost as I was, how maybe those words she said came from her own desperate need to make sense of her grief. I'm not saying what she did was right. It wasn't. Those words hurt me in ways I'm still uncovering, but I realized something sitting there that morning at 81 years old. The apology I'd been waiting for wouldn't heal me even if it came, because the healing wasn't about her words. It was about mine. I wrote Margaret a letter, not to send, just to write. I told her everything I'd wanted to say for 40 years. I told her how much she'd hurt me. I told her I'd wasted decades of my life waiting for her to acknowledge that hurt. And then I told her I was choosing to stop waiting. I told her I forgave her, not because she'd earned it or because she'd asked for it, but because I was tired of carrying her in every room I walked into. I burned that letter in my fireplace and watched the pages curl and blacken. As the last bit of paper dissolved into ash, I felt something shift. It wasn't dramatic. There was no weight lifted off my shoulders, no sudden lightness. It was quieter than that. It was like I'd been holding my breath for so long I'd forgotten I was doing it, and finally I exhaled. Margaret died 2 years later at 83. I went to her funeral. Her daughter showed me pictures from her last few months, and in every single one she was smiling. She looked free in a way I'd never seen her. I don't know if she ever thought about what she said to me that day. I don't know if she carried any regret. And standing there, looking at those pictures, I realized I didn't need to know. I'm 98 now. I've lived almost 2 decades since I stopped waiting, and they've been the clearest years of my long life. I can talk about Margaret without my chest tightening. I can remember the good parts of our childhood without the bad parts drowning them out. I can love her and hurt from her in the same breath, and neither feeling cancels out the other. If you're waiting for someone to apologize, I want you to hear this. You might wait your whole life. They might never understand what they took from you. They might never even remember the moment that you can't forget. And if you spend your years waiting, you'll look back and realize you gave them more than they took in the first place. You gave them your present while they kept their peace. Closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you give yourself when you're finally ready to stop waiting. It's not about forgetting or excusing or pretending it didn't matter. It's about deciding that you matter more than the words you never heard. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us do. But I know I'm not spending another day waiting for something that was never mine to wait for. And I hope you won't either.